This has got to be one of the most interesting cases we've done in a long time.
Really?
To me, being from here and not knowing this case at all, I was riveted.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And we're back at the 7-5 a little bit.
I know.
Seeing our old friends at 7-5.
Hey,
Actually, no, not at all. We're not seeing anyone there.
Yeah.
That we know.
Speaking of old friends.
Uh-oh.
Jillian Benzavale.
Patrick Hines.
Ba-da-dum.
What was that
Robot
note
Man.
at the end? Oh,
Robot
okay.
Man. Robot Man.
You just love singing now.
I do.
You're a singer now. She sings.
She sings. Hi, girl.
Hey, girl.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, fam. How about I got 2 requests. Join the Facebook group.
Okay, great.
True Crime Obsessed podcast discussion group. Go to Facebook and find it. We're in there. I'm in there all the time.
Okay, great.
I'm always doing the interacting.
You are.
There's like lots of people you can meet and friends, and we
Yeah.
talk about the episodes, but we also talk about other stuff. Also, join us on the Patreon if you want more Jillian and me. Now that we're in January, we can say officially we are doing a cocktail making class with a fancy bartender this month.
Oh, yeah. That's happening like January 8th?
I think that's the date.
I think.
The date will all be in the Facebook group.
Okay, great.
And then also, we're doing our first drag bingo.
Yeah.
It's going to be
I'm
live.
really excited.
Schwa is the name of the performer.
I'm really
she
excited.
sings and she does this professionally. It's like the thing that she does. It's like what she's known for.
I can't wait.
I'm so excited. So patreon.com/TrueCrimeObsessed or go to our website, click on the Patreon link.
Yeah, figure it
Join
out.
us.
Join us, won't you?
All right, tell them what we're talking about today.
So the series is called Catching Killers. This is season 3, episode 2. It's called The Night Terror, the New York Zodiac Killer.
Joe Proci lived in this basement apartment. He was a lonely, old, defenseless guy who's now fighting for his life. The 7-5 precinct led the city over 100 shootings a year. But the strange thing on this one case, this note was there. This cryptic, eerie note. At the top is a circle with 3 symbols. This is the Zodiac. The 12th sign will die when the belts in the heaven are seen. I thought, who the fuck are we dealing with?
I cannot believe, especially with how obsessed with the Zodiac you and I both are, that I did not know. Did you know this?
Well, it's not the Zodiac.
I know, but like just that it's called the Zodiac.
A little bit. Like
Yeah.
there was a little bit of I was talking to my parents about this.
Because
too.
it happens in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it could have. I know that we know that it wasn't.
Right.
But like, technically, if the Zodiac were still alive, he would have been, like, he could have done it. No?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No.
This wasn't really his. You can tell right away this is a
Not
fake
his jam.
Zodiac. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we start May 31st, 1990. We're in the Bronx. We're at the 7-5 precinct.
Well, we're actually in Brooklyn because that's where the 7-5 is.
Oh, you're right. God damn it.
Yeah.
And we meet Detective Mike Cravallo.
Now, we know all about the 7-5
Yes.
when we covered the 7-5, but no one that we talked about or met in that documentary is here with us today. This is sort of like
To which
crossing.
I say, thank God. You know what I mean?
I know. Come on,
I
let's
also
focus.
feel like we kind of learn, you don't last at that precinct very long.
No, unless you're stealing shit,
I know.
which they all did.
And if you haven't heard our episode called The 7-5, go find it. It's a fan fave.
I mean, it was really, but like it was the deadliest precinct in the country for a long
Yes.
time. So like a lot of shit went down at the 7-5.
So Mike is telling us about this poor defenseless old man named Joe Proci. He was like an old man who'd been shot in front of his building, and the killer left a note calling himself the Zodiac.
Yeah. But when we meet Detective Mike, he's sitting crotch first.
Yes.
And he has a very good tailor who he wants us to know sews his name into his custom suits.
Because he
That's
walks-
how you know you've made it, I think.
That's true. Mike walks onto the set, and like I feel like the producer is trying to get him to say something over the top.
And they do that with every single person we meet, and we meet a number of people.
How about Grumpy Santa that we get later?
You mean the guy from Duck Dynasty?
Yes.
He's not really from Duck Dynasty.
No.
He really longs for the good old days of police brutality. I'll tell you that much.
I think
Oh,
they
boy.
all kind of do.
Oh, God.
I know. I know.
So Detective Mike grew up smack dab in the middle of the Bronx.
Yep.
He loved the way cops look in uniform.
I was like, Mike.
I know.
I was 17 years old when that yearbook came out. 2 months later, I put up my right hand and I was sworn into the NYPD. They wanted me to be an undercover in the Vice Squad. And that's the stepping stone to my detective shield.
Seems a little bit young.
Seems a little young, especially since they want him to join the Vice Squad.
And work undercover.
I mean, like, those are the guys that would go into the gay bars and pretend to be gay and then arrest you after, like, entrapping you into, like, grabbing their crotches.
I was going to say, that's
a real
entrapment.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, they would literally go wait in the bathrooms at Stonewall and, like, show their peens to you, get you to touch their actual peens, and then they would arrest you. Like, that's real. That's really part of gay history.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Right. Well, this is 1990, so we're a little past that point. I'm just saying, he likes a man in uniform.
He does
so
like a man in
became
uniform.
One. So Detective Mike eventually moves on to be the commanding officer of the Crimes Against Senior Citizens Squad.
Which I was like, happy to know those exist.
I know.
Where were you when they were fleecing my mom? My mom got one of those like afternoon call. I mean, one of those horrible nightmare situations.
Yeah, be convincing.
Yeah, the old lady, like student loan stuff. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. Burning in hell.
Seriously. So that's where Detective Mike was in 1990, the day Joe Procci was shot.
Yes.
So the bullet is found at the scene, and after picking up Joe Procci's jacket, it fell to the ground.
Because
right?
they say that it went right through him.
Yeah.
Like, it was at like such close range, and he was like probably such a frail older man. The bullet went right through him.
And he was wearing a heavy coat, even though it was May.
Yeah.
So that's sort of why we're here with this.
And they interview Joe because he survives the attack.
He said he was out for his nightly walk. The guy followed him. Told him, get away from me, I don't have any money. And that's when he was shot. It was dark, his eyesight was not good. He couldn't tell us what the perpetrator looked like.
He doesn't get a look at the perpetrator, and so we don't have any like physical description to go on.
And that's okay, Joe.
That's
of
course.
All right.
No, Joe, it's not your fault, but like it's wild that like the 90s is my lifetime.
Yeah.
And so we're reminded over and over again in this episode how bad technology was.
I know.
They have no systems, they have no databases, and it's like it's very hard to catch criminals back in those days.
Yeah, and when the victim is someone who just isn't really built to be a great eyewitness, which is, again, fine, but like this is why these people do this at night. They find someone who's a little older. Maybe it was pretty obvious the way Joe was walking. He's wearing a heavy coat in May. He was a perfect
Knock
prey
these
for
glasses
this guy.
off my face, I wouldn't be able to see you across this table.
Is that right?
I know. My eyes are bad, girl.
They're real bad, right?
Yeah. When I went to see if I was a candidate for LASIK, they looked at my eyes and went, whoa!
So no?
So absolutely not.
Why?
My eyes are all like, I have astigmatism in both eyes, so they're they're basically squares.
Oh my God. I didn't know. I thought LASIK like cured all for everyone.
Nope.
I didn't know that there was like a way that you couldn't get it.
Not for me. They were like, Linda, come over here and look at these. You're not going to believe what's in here.
Are you in the science books now?
I should be.
The guy with the square eyes. So the cops are trying to match the bullet to a gun, but the bullet didn't have any unique markings on it. And this is where we learned that the killer used what they're calling a zip gun.
How are we hearing this for the first time on episode 7,000?
They're describing it as a crude homemade gun.
I was like,
Woof.
what?
Woof. So they describe it, and every word is like more terrifying than the next. So
it's basically a length of pipe. It's a rubber band, like a slingshot with a nail in it. Zip gun. They're impossible to trace. It's just a piece of plumbing.
It's just a piece of plumbing.
Right.
You can 3D print plastic guns now.
It's just a piece of plumbing, he says.
Oh, my God.
It's nothing.
I know.
Oh, my God.
Look, he's not looking at Square Eyes Hines right in the face and being like, it's just a piece of plumbing.
It's just a piece of plumbing, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. Now, the shooter wrote a note, right? And it was, supposed to be very reminiscent of the famous San Francisco Zodiac case because it had like the crosshairs and, this is the Zodiac speaking and all that stuff. And remember, the Zodiac in San Francisco had never been caught. So as far as the cops knew, he's still out there.
Well, because the Zodiac was in the late 60s, and let's imagine the guy was like in his 30s then.
I guess.
So he would have been like in his, I guess you could still be a serial killer in your 50s.
I mean, there's a lot you can do.
There's a lot you can still,
but
listen, I am inching closer and closer to that decade every minute. Every minute.
Eyes Hines.
Square Eyes.
Doing your best out there. So New York sends the note to the crime lab in San Francisco because they're like, all right, well, it's probably a copycat, but let's send it out to San Fran anyway.
But what's wild about that is that really all they can do is like forensic comparison, or fingerprints. There's no
like handwriting, which is
swabbing
bullshit
for
anyway.
DNA. Like we are in the dark ages in 1990.
Yeah.
Ballistics is telling us there's nothing to identify firearm used. Oh, shit. I called the lab to see if they can tell us anything. Okay, there's no fingerprints on this note. Oh, shit.
No movement on the note. Shit, God damn it.
And this is where he says all of the resources at the 7-5 went to homicide because in those days it was constant. They described the number of homicides in this precinct as being like the ocean, waves that just keep coming in.
Yeah. So June 18th, 18 days after the Joe Procci shooting, there's another shooting. And there's another note.
Yeah. And they say it looks just like the one that we found at the Procci scene a few weeks ago. Opens with, "This is the Zodiac."
And like the killer sent this to the New York Post, which is a newspaper in New York, which is exactly what the Zodiac used to do, sending it to the newspaper in San Francisco.
Right. And so like the handwriting looks the same as the note from the Procci scene. And it says, "All shoot in Brooklyn with a 380 RNL or a 9mm, no grooves on bullets."
Right. And this guy is trying very, very hard to make it seem like he's the California Zodiac from the 60s, only he's really leaning into the astrology thing, which the California Zodiac did not do.
No, but Mike also says the whole like no grooves on the bullet thing, that's something that only the killer would know.
Exactly.
So like this is the same person.
So this fake Zodiac, this New York Zodiac, is taking credit for the Joe Procci shooting.
Yeah.
And 2 other shootings that happened before that. And the cops were totally unaware of these other shootings that he's taking credit for.
And like Mike and team spring into action. They're checking all the shootings that coincided with these dates and times. And they find 2 that match the shooting that this guy is talking about.
Right.
The first one is Mario Orzocco, I think is how you say it. It happened on March 8th, 1990. This man worked at a restaurant in Manhattan. He had a disability where he walked with a limp. He was shot in the back. The shooter wore a mask. And after he was down, the shooter stood over him and put the gun to his head and then doesn't fire.
He's just wreaking havoc out there.
What
just
a
scaring
piece of
people.
shit.
Then German Montenegro, and this guy was very drunk, so the cops say he was an easy target. And he might have already been passed out, they say, because he couldn't give a description. And they're calling this guy a serial shooter.
Because all 3 of these guys have survived. These 2 new guys and Joe Procci, they all lived.
And so this New York Zodiac thinks he killed these people.
Right.
But all of them survived.
But here's the wild thing. They realize that in his notes, he's got a drawing of a pie chart.
We then realized his drawings on the pie slice coincides with the 3 correct astrological signs of the first 3 victims. Roscoe Montenegro Procci, he had the Taurus, he had the Scorpio, and he had the Gemini. He was 3 for 3.
One of each of these men has that star sign.
Right.
So somehow he is knowing like the star signs of the people that he's killing.
Right.
So imagine like that means these can't be random shootings, right?
Yeah. Or he's walking up to people saying like
what's your sign?
Yeah.
But like you're just going to tell a random stranger, like you would think they would remember these men lived.
Right.
And they're not saying that he's doing
that. They're not. Yeah.
So it's like how does he know their signs? Because when he's mailing these like letters to the police, he's like, "I just killed a Taurus."
Right.
How'd you know that Joe Procci was a Taurus?
And the other thing is that there are 9 more signs in the Zodiac.
Right.
So how do we stop this guy before he hurts or kills somebody else?
Which is like, this guy definitely seems much more organized than the California Zodiac. Like the California Zodiac, every life is precious and 1 killing is too many. But the California Zodiac didn't actually kill all that many people in comparison to other serial killers. And like they were either felt kind of random or he left like, like with the cab driver, he like was seen and he like left, like there was like the fingerprint. This guy seems organized. He's going in order of astrological signs and he's getting his victims' astrological signs somehow.
And there's no evidence. So there are no prints on the note. So he probably wore gloves. And then meanwhile, like in the middle of all this, San Francisco confirms this is a copycat. And the cops are like, this didn't help us one bit.
No.
We are screwed. San Francisco, you fucked us on this. We specifically asked you, please do not fuck us on this. And they did.
And this is where we learned that like the Zodiac is just really into the Zodiac, like the Zodiac signs.
Yeah.
Right.
Like this fake Zodiac. I'm just going to call him fake Zodiac.
Yeah.
Just keeps writing about like Orion and the 7 Sisters, all these constellations.
Right. And so Mike says there's an aspect to the investigation that required some thought outside of the proverbial
Here we go.
Wait till we're going to meet a warlock in this episode,
all
fam.
All the offbeat stuff, they say, like eye roll.
Well, because Larry's here. And
Detective Larry.
He's great, but he was assigned to like learn about all this occult stuff.
Right.
People called us a lot of things. They called us the Devil Desk. They called it the Voodoo Team.
So Larry was part of that team who was looking into astrology, astronomy, witchcraft,
Okay.
all the offbeat stuff.
astrology and astronomy and witchcraft, and he was in charge of looking into all of that.
They're trying to get ahead of this guy.
So Detective Larry's story is that he grew up in Brooklyn with wise guys and people who knew wise guys, which are like people in the mob. And they'd all brag about it, but not on Larry's watch.
Not on his goddamn watch.
He did not appreciate it. No. He thought it gave Italians a bad name and he'd have no part of it.
Yes.
Wonder how he feels about The Sopranos. He probably hates it.
He probably hates it.
But he wanted to be in the organized crime unit, and he goes, yeah, but having an Italian last name kind of branded you.
Because he was told
he wasn't allowed to play in their reindeer games.
No, they're like, we got enough of you out there that we're trying to get. We don't need Italians on like the good guys side.
Like what? I don't know what's going on here.
What's going on at the 7-5?
What's happening?
You guys are a little bit out of your minds.
And Detective Larry's like, yeah, some people use that as a crutch. And then he starts fake crying. He's like, oh, because I'm Italian, I didn't get that job. And he's like, no, you didn't get it because you're not good enough. And I'm like, Detective Larry.
His family operated within the law, he wants us to know.
Like, by the book.
They are do-gooders.
So anyway, this is unlike anything they've ever dealt with before. The notes, the Zodiac thing, the astrology, and they start really looking at it in a very organized, like Steve Tipton Excel spreadsheet, Natalie Grillo kind of way.
We created a chart with the dates of the shootings. We had March 8th, March 29th, and May 31st. What we could see was a 21-day cycle being followed here.
He's following a 21-day cycle.
Yes.
And they call up the Parks Department, and they speak to a very prestigious astronomer, and we don't know anything about this person.
We don't get the person's name, and I was also, like, excited to know that the Parks Department employs, like, a fancy astrologer.
Well, astronomer.
Oh, astronomer. Is there a difference?
Yes.
Tell me private school.
Well, astrology is
Is this the difference between, like, a psychiatrist and a therapist? Like,
probably
one can prescribe
psychologist and psychiatrist. Astronomy is actually the study of, like, the stars and the sky and the constellations and the planets. And astrology is, like, your horoscope.
Oh, right. Gotcha.
Right.
I went to a Christmas party the other day where there was a tarot card reader.
What'd you get?
It was really good. I can't remember any of the cards, but she was like, it's a good. I got the one with the sword.
Girl.
What?
There are like 20 with swords.
Oh.
Swords is like a suit.
Oh, okay. Well, she said they were very good. The year 2024 is going to be a good year for me, she said.
Thank God for that.
Thank God for that.
This is why everyone take pictures of your tarot reading so you can look back. Yeah, then you can kind of look back and...
My big takeaway from the tarot reading was that at my next party, I'm having a tarot reader.
Oh, so fun.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be you.
No.
No, you just want to come to the party.
I just want to come to the party. But I like going to parties, and I'm not one of those, like, jerks about it. I'm going to listen to whatever they say. I'm not going to be like,
great.
well, to me, the Three of Swords means this. I'm not going to do that.
No.
Because it's all about, it's all about interpretation.
Yes.
Anyway, this prestigious astronomer tells them that on March 8th, 3 specific constellations were visible at the time of the shooting.
Seven Sisters, Taurus, and Orion. March 29th, all 3 were visible at the time of the shooting. The next 2 21-day periods, the stars were not in the sky at the same time. No shootings.
So March 8th and March 29th are days that people got shot.
Right.
So they line up with when these constellations were all visible.
This 21-day cycle theory.
Right. So the next 2 21-day cycles, the stars were not all in the sky at the same time. They weren't all visible.
And what happened?
No shootings.
There you go.
This guy is fucking organized.
And that's why the next shooting is on May 31st, because the 3 constellations were visible again.
At 2:04 a.m.
So on June 21st, all 3 will be visible again. And that's what the cops are looking at now. They're like, something's going to happen on June 21st between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. and we got to figure this out.
Which is like so wild. Larry says it's never been done before that you were able to predict when a shooting was going to take place within a couple of hours. It must feel like magic because they take it to the chief and the chief doesn't believe it.
And he's
the chief is like, what, is Square Eyes Hines running this division?
And then Detective Larry's like, right, you don't have to believe in it. Our perp does. It doesn't matter what you believe. The point is the 21-day cycle theory is we just kind of proved it maybe.
Well,
but then the thing is, where the hell is he going to be? On the 21st between those 3 hours? Like, I'm really glad you narrowed it down, but how do you narrow down where he's going to be?
But you know what? The chief was like, you know what? Screw that. You have all the resources you fucking need. Every single cop in the city of New York is going to be out on the 21st.
It's all hands on deck on June 21st.
But like Mike calls the newspaper.
I got on the phone to the New York Post and I said, please do not put this out. When we get this guy, I'm going to give you an exclusive. But next morning, front page, New York Post.
Cover of the Post the next day.
Well, I don't understand why they needed to be called in the first place. No one knew about the 21st connection, so just work the case and get it done. Why do you have to call the Post to be like, hey?
I know. Here's the thing we don't want you to know about.
And also, it's setting yourself up for failure because it's pretty hard to catch a murder in real. Like, there are 5 boroughs you have to look at. Or
I know.
maybe not. Maybe it's the tri-state area. You don't know where this guy is. Why are you telling the Post anything?
Yeah.
And the Post sucks.
The Post sucks. I guess you're right. Like, even if the Post hadn't blown their cover, how do you cover all of New York?
Right. I don't know what you're thinking.
New York City, fam, if you don't know, New York City is not just Manhattan. It's like all the 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
And Brooklyn is huge. Brooklyn is like the 3rd biggest city in the country.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So I just don't, maybe this got lost in translation or lost in editing, but I don't understand why he had to give the Post this heads up
Give me the Post. I got to call them and tell them about a story they don't know and I don't want them to run it.
Yeah, keep your trap shut until the 22nd.
About this thing that you didn't know about.
It's the Post.
I know.
They've been trashed for quite some time.
But we see the chief, the one who was like, I don't really know about all this, Larry. He goes on the news and he's like,
if any individual approaches them in any fashion and the subject gets around to the date of birth, to be extremely careful, and we would like to know about any incident like that that's happened.
We'd like to know about it immediately.
Let me tell you something. This is before Tinder and Grindr and all that. What's your sign was the only pickup line people had in 1990. And now you're telling people.
Are you watching Seinfeld
if
or whatever?
Anyone asks you what everyone in Midtown in a bar was be talking about what your sign was.
Oh, God, that's terrifying.
No apps or nothing.
If there was, I was thinking about this today, because, there's an active serial killer at this time on the loose in Manhattan or in all of New York City, right? And I'm like, there probably is that right now, too, as we speak. There's probably an active serial killer that many of the police know about that we don't know about.
Yes.
The Post has made the entire city aware of it. I would not leave my house. Mm-hmm. If I knew there was an active serial killer with a homemade nail gun on the loose, killing people at random, but also knowing but not random enough because he knows their zodiac signs, I would just stay inside. But at the same time, there probably is that happening right now. I just don't know about it.
In some way.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I know.
Great.
Should we just move into the booth?
In this booth now.
I know.
What the fuck? So June 21st, Operation Watchdog is put into effect. They put this all-star team, best of the best, right? Everyone's getting ready to go. And this is where we meet Detective Louis Severisi, he's not like a real detective, he's a cool detective.
I call him Grumpy Santa because he looks just like Santa.
He's right out of Duck Dynasty. He's got the hat, the long beard, the camo pants, a utility vest of some kind.
I know.
He's got a lot of tattoos.
And he's here.
Got my friends' names on here. My friend Buckets, he's dead. Brian, he got killed in 9/11. On my back, I have faces of serial killers. I got Manson, Charlie Manson, Berkowitz. I got John Wayne Gacy, the clown. And the theme was evil that men do.
The theme of this tattoo art on his back is evil that men do.
It's very weird.
And he says without cops, there would be anarchy, which...
I know.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, he's a little out of time and place.
It's major, it's a hard job, but someone's got to do it vibes. Because it's I save the world from bad guys. I'm like, all right, Louis.
Louis. Louis is definitely the uncle you got to be careful around at Thanksgiving. You know what I mean?
Or you just don't go.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to introduce that uncle to your friends. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Because Detective Louis longs for the good old days. He says,
know.
We hunted the streets. Now we have to say canvassing.
I know.
But I was hunting. And I'm like, ooh.
I know.
So they have no leads. They have to find this guy based on nothing. And this is where, he says, we toss questions and frisk everybody who moved. Now would be considered a violation of your civil rights with all the snowflakes. And I'm like,
know. Because I'm also
Louis.
like, Mike, if you were to go back to that night in 1990 where you're actually tossing, frisking, and manhandling everybody you could find.
Assaulting people.
Let's line them up and let's actually take a picture of what they look like.
Yeah, I don't know
Who were
about
you
that.
actually doing that to, Mike?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I mean, this is post Ted Bundy, no?
Yeah.
We know that mediocre white guys do this the most.
Yep, but I bet they weren't the ones that were getting tossed
That's
and
what I'm
frisked.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The good old days, right? Nope. Yikes.
Yeah.
So by 4 a.m., nothing has happened.
This is where we get a lot of the cops being really sad that nobody was brutally murdered.
And they're look, we don't want to say it, but we have to call off the hunt at 4 a.m. and they're super frustrated.
They're mad that nobody was brutally killed to prove their theory that they could pinpoint within a couple of hours when the next killing was going to take place.
And it's also that, oh, okay, that's a whole other thing to unpack.
Yeah.
But also, just because they have the whole, the astronomy knowledge that they have, where it's these are visible at the most between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. But just because something horrible happens at 3:30 a.m. doesn't mean it's going to get called in the minute it happens.
Yeah, and also we learned that they were mostly in Brooklyn. They weren't really focusing on Manhattan because we will learn later too that the killer has zones that he targets.
Right.
And they're all mostly in Brooklyn. So like that's where most of the cops are.
So they're super frustrated, right?
Yeah.
He goes, there's nothing left to do but go back to the barn and sign the overtime slips.
Go back to the barn.
But Detective Mike gets a phone call.
Yeah.
And it's from the Central Park Police.
He said, "You didn't get anybody up in Queens and Brooklyn tonight, did you?" I said, "No." He says, "You know why? Because he just shot somebody in Central Park." Son of a bitch.
Someone was shot in Central Park.
Son of a bitch.
I'm like, did you go to the Janine Pirro School of Filming documentary?
I know, because he literally goes, son of a bitch.
So, and they're like, look, while it's horrible
Yes.
that someone got shot, which is true.
My next note is everyone is celebrating.
Because the cops are like, the point is, they're explaining their celebration.
Yeah.
They're like, we feel vindicated because the 21-day cycle was right. We
Yeah.
were just at the wrong location. And I'm like, right, well, that doesn't do anything for the person who was shot.
And like, there's no way you could have been at the, unless you had, like, the city is too big.
And the post is all over it. Thanks
Yeah.
a lot.
Yes.
So victim number 4 is Larry Parham. He was an unhoused black man,
Yeah.
and he was shot one time. And again, he's still alive because just like Joe Procci, the bullet went right through him.
Yeah, and he was like sleeping on a bench in Central Park near the band shell. And like, right, he was asleep, so he can't give a description.
Right.
He doesn't know what the guy looks like.
But once again, there's a note at the scene.
And guess what? He got the guy's star sign right.
Yeah.
So Parham is a Cancer, and this time, he's got the pie chart where he's
like filling in all the signs.
Yes, he added Cancer. So he knew this man who was asleep when he attacked him, he did not have a conversation with him. Somehow he knew this guy was a Cancer. How?
Because maybe he asked them the day before. Like he's stalking these people in some sense.
Yeah.
So there are 8 more signs left, which means 8 more people are in danger, right? Like,
which is actually terrifying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know how many more there are to go.
We have to stop this guy.
Yeah.
So
like if you're a Leo, stay inside. If you're an Aries, stay inside.
Yeah, it's like, Cancer season now. It's like, and because it's like in the time, June, whatever. So late June 1990, Joe Procci dies from his injuries.
Yes.
Now the manhunt has turned into a homicide investigation.
The Zodiac shooter was now the Zodiac Killer.
This is now officially a homicide investigation.
Yep.
And there's a 50-person task force. And Detective Mike's like, it's that line from that movie, you're going to need a bigger boat. And I'm like, Jaws? Like one of the most famous lines ever uttered on screen
Jaws.
ever.
What a fucking terrifying movie.
Terrifying.
You know what I mean? You feel about planes the way I feel about sharks.
My mom's like, that made me never want to go in a pool again. Jaws fucked people up.
I know.
That first scene.
I know.
Oh my God. And the mayor is an idiot. And the mayor's not listening to Dreyfus and all the scientists.
Listen, I know.
Dummies.
There's a play on Broadway right now about how the disastrous filming of the making of Jaws.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I can't think of what it's called, but there's a play on Broadway
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Alex Brightman is in it.
Where have I been? Brightman's about to go to Spamalot in
I know.
a couple
He
weeks.
couldn't go into the original company because he was doing this play.
What the hell? Why don't I know about this? It's Brightman and Jaws?
Yeah, it's called The Shark is Broken.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right. I gotta go now.
You gotta go.
Well, before January 7th or whatever. I don't have time. So anyway, the 21-day cycle continues, and now they start looking into witchcraft and black magic, and it's so stupid, but here we are.
Oh my God. So like, this is where Larry, because like, if the 21-day cycle is a real thing, and like, maybe if they learn about witchcraft and wizardry, they could like maybe figure out how to stop this guy, because just knowing when he's going to do it is not enough, because it's not stopping anything.
The city has a zillion people in it.
So he goes and meets with a warlock, and he decides he's going to tell us what a warlock is. It's a male witch.
Okay.
And his name is Herman Slater.
Yeah.
And he's well known in the occult community.
Yeah, he was like super famous for a time.
Oh, was he?
He ran like a community center. He's a pretty controversial
Here?
guy. Yeah.
Okay.
He died of AIDS in 1992,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
But he had like a lot of famous bookstores in the city, and he was kind of like known.
I mean, the guy sells ceremonial robes, sacrificial daggers.
I think sacrificial daggers are something that's used. Like, it's not
like to be used like later today.
I just thought that was a pretty irresponsible thing to say. I'm just saying. So
candles and books.
Like Herman Slater tells the cops that the shooter killer is a follower of Aleister Crowley, who died in 1947.
Which makes sense. He's in a lot of these.
Yeah, he's a pretty, well-known guy in the occult, right?
Uh-huh.
And so Herman Slater, the warlock, tells the cops.
The warlock. I just wrote it on a business card.
Yeah.
Herman Slater, warlock.
Which I'm sure he did. Like, that's how he knew. Like, he ran a community center. Like, he was super into this. But he tells the cops.
And Slater says, I don't carry that stuff. I don't touch his works. That he said, if you even say their name, if they know that you know their name, they will kill you.
don't say their name. If you know their name, they will kill you. And I'm like, look, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Even Larry makes a face. Like, Larry who's scared isn't that scared.
But like, for someone who's so educated in this, controversial or not, Herman Slater, it just seems silly that he would respond this way. Like, I think something was lost in translation because he kind of knows better. Like, I just don't think he'd be like, don't even say their name. It's like, what? Like, you know better, no, Herman?
Well,
I don't know.
But the thing is, like, Herman's not the only one who doesn't carry Aleister Crowley's book. Like Larry is searching every occult story he can find in the 5 boroughs. He can't find one. He's got to go to the library.
Okay, so Detective Larry goes...
This is wild. Get ready for a ghost story, fam.
The Fifth Avenue Research Library.
Which I have spent a lot of time in. I love that place.
I love it too.
Yeah.
He gets the book. He sits it down. According to Detective Larry, the book opens automatically.
Pops open.
There was a note inside. White devil and lightning bolt. In that moment, I was afraid. I took my gun, loosened it up in my belt.
Detective Larry is so afraid that he pulls a gun on a book in the library.
He pulled his gun on a book, and it was such a prominent moment in this man's life. They do a reenactment for the documentary.
And from behind the camera, they ask, be honest, is any of this helpful? Because it's getting so ridiculous even for the series.
Yeah.
They're like, look, we tried everything. So in other words, no.
Right, yeah.
It was not helpful at all. Can you imagine pulling a gun on a book in the library?
No. I mean, it's like absolutely. And it feels like we need all hands on deck trying to actually find this guy.
Right.
Stop going to occult stores.
You're not going to find him at the Fifth Avenue Library.
No, you're not.
Come on,
I know.
everybody. Get a grip.
But even Mike is like, Larry worked his ass off trying to get all this information. Like, people were really like, Larry was working really hard.
Right. So they finally catch a break.
Yeah.
I got a call from the lab. We've got fingerprint evidence from the Larry Parham letter. Somewhere on the side, there was an index with 15 points of identification on it. But we didn't have computers in these days, so we just couldn't, look through a database to see if anything coincided.
They had to manually go through every fingerprint they had on file and try to match it manually. That is insane.
And so eventually, we'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw some numbers at you. That's not going to make any sense. But
yeah.
They're basically waiting till this guy hops a turnstile.
They're saying like he's going to hop a turnstile, get arrested and fingerprinted. And then like that's going to be the only way we're going to like match this guy up. I'm like, that could be forever.
And like, are you sure he's hopping a turnstile?
I know.
How do you know that? Is it written in the stars that he's...
Right. Is it written in the stars?
How do you know that he's going to jump a turnstile? And I'm like, so you're just going to be harassing people who are jumping turnstiles?
We'll get back to that in 1 second. I want to take a second here and say hello to all my Joanna Gleason fans in the group.
Because they love
listen,
that.
I made one Joanna Gleason reference in an episode forever ago. I'm like, that is for the 2 people who don't know. We were flooded. With posts in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I sang 8 notes from Aida just now.
Yes.
And I'm like, somebody knew what it was.
Yes.
Is it written in the stars?
Come on, my
it's
strongest
God's
suit.
Experiment.
I mean, that show, unbelievable.
It's so good.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, hi guys.
Hey everyone. To the Aida people. I saw that show a zillion. I saw that show with Diane Dane.
Diane Dane.
No, that's from that thing you do. From what's her name?
I know.
Tell it to my heart.
Yeah, Taylor Dane.
Tell it to my only one. She was. She played
Amneris.
She played Amneris, who was originally played by
Sharon
Renee
Scott. What is this? A gay
Another
quiz? What's
icon.
going on over here?
No, just talking. Okay. No one's being quizzed. Just having a conversation. Diane Dane. That's a deep cut for my That Thing You Do people out there. Wow.
Really? Honestly, you were very important to me.
So, the cops are just going to like...
If you don't know Sharon Scott, now we're here.
Okay.
Now we're just here for a minute.
Norbert Leo Butz, if we're doing this.
Oh my God.
If we're
Norbert
doing
Leo
this.
Butz is literally my favorite Broadway actor of all time.
He's amazing. And the reason I jumped there is because they did the last 5 years
Of
together.
course.
So that's
now,
why.
if you don't know Sharon Scott, go YouTube her right now.
She's incredible.
Norbert Leo Butz, my favorite Broadway actor of all time. One
excellent.
time, I was in the playground with my husband and Daisy. He walked in with his daughter.
You meet a lot of people in the playground.
It
Playground
was
is hopping.
just us, and I didn't know what they came right over. They were talking to us like it was no big deal.
Oh my God.
He's talking to me like he's not Norbert Leo goddamn Butz.
Oh my God.
I played it. Steve was squeezing my hand like, don't ruin this. Just be cool.
Yeah.
And as we were leaving, I turned to him and I said, I just want you to know you're the Beatles to me.
Oh my God. What did he say?
His face,
He's so
like,
good.
because we've been talking for 10 minutes, like it was just a normal day. Like it wasn't the best.
Just another day.
We were talking like it was just a normal day, and then I turned to Butz and I said, I just want you to know you're the Beatles to me.
He's excellent.
Yeah.
He's excellent in Bloodline. He's excellent in everything. So yeah, the cops are just going to like start harassing people who are hopping the turnstile because they have it in their minds that this guy's going to start hopping turnstiles. It doesn't make any sense. Woof, again.
The point
they
is...
can't wait to just manhandle and harass people.
That is
what
true.
we're talking about.
But I'm wondering why like, are they at the same time going through all the fingerprints they already have on file?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
So it's July 12th, and it's 21 days after the Larry Parham shooting, who was the unhoused man in Central Park. And they're on the hunt again. And they're trying to catch this guy before he shoots and or kills another person.
Yeah.
And once again, nothing happens. And they're doing this every 21 days. They're calling it Operation Watchdog.
Yes.
So every 21 days, they just like wander the streets aimlessly.
But this time they had to include Manhattan because that's where Mr. Parham was killed in Central Park. So it was like they had to expand. Like, this is not a good plan, everybody. It's good that you know when it's going to happen. Maybe just advise people to stay home.
Well, I mean, how long are we going to do that? Oh,
I know. I know.
We have a lockdown. So they do this 3 or 4 more times every 21 days, and nothing happens. This guy's in the wind.
He's in the wind. Can we just take a second? It looks like we're on set with Mike, the detective. He's just smoking inside.
Yeah.
He pulls out like a cigar, and he's like, I was doing 2 packs a day back during the Zodiac case.
Yeah.
There's a whole set crew of people
I
there.
know. Did you at least ask? I mean, no one's going to say no. I guess I would say no if that was
I
my
would
set.
absolutely say no.
So there's 3 months and no activity.
The task force was disbanded at the end of November of 1990. Navy Yard was cleaned out, and everybody went back to their respective commands. We just didn't catch the right break. Was it a failure? Hell yeah, it was a failure.
Man, we really wanted to get this guy. You know, they feel like failures.
This was the first point where I was like, oh my God, are we not going to find out who this guy is?
And then like years are going by. Some of these guys start retiring, you know, and the case is really sticking with them, and they wanted to be the ones to get them. And now like, you know, their pension is calling and they're like off the force. So we jump to 1994 and we meet Joe Herbert, who's a sergeant at the 7-5. Now, again, the stuff in the 7-5 doc was well before this. Like Mikey Dowd was Mikey Dowd.
That was like the 70s, wasn't it? Or was it the 80s?
It was the 80s because Mikey Dowd was arrested in 92.
Oh.
So Joe Herbert is the sergeant in 1994.
Okay.
So we just missed all that.
Once again, we do have a lot of new listeners lately. If you're new and you like us, go listen to our episode called The 7-5. It is a classic TCO.
This is like a dress rehearsal for the 7-5.
Oh, totally.
So there's a new fake Zodiac letter.
Yeah.
The headline is, "Hi, I'm back. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I'm the fake Zodiac." So Joe Herbert, who's sergeant at the 7-5, his nickname is Pork Chop.
Oh my God.
Why? Because he likes to eat.
Grumpy Santa comes back later. He's like, I mean, he's even thin for what he was back then. I still call him Pork Chop.
Can we not?
I know.
I think Pork Chop is a very cute name.
Yeah.
But we're not food shaming.
Absolutely not.
On this podcast.
No.
Hell no.
No.
So Joe dives into the case and he starts researching all the crimes that this New York Zodiac is taking all the credit for.
Yes.
And these are considered like the new round of attacks. Because remember, it's 1984 and they're starting again.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, like, 1990 was when, like, the first attacks were happening. The attacks we're about to tell you about were in 1992. So this guy really didn't take many years off.
No.
Because we're meeting Joe in 94, it seems like he went silent for a while, but he didn't really.
Right.
And what's happening is that because there were so many fucking homicides in Manhattan during the time, the, like, Zodiac murders, like, stopped being noticed as separate things. They were just, like, folded into all the other murders.
And they weren't investigating them as having any connection.
Exactly.
Either.
So the first one is from August 10th, 1992.
Female white stabbed and shot in Highland Park. That was Patricia Fonte. She was stabbed over 100 times, and we found no indication that she was shot, but she could have been. There were so many marks on her body.
We didn't get any indication that we was shot, but maybe it was because she was stabbed so many times that an actual shooting of her body went unnoticed.
Yeah. And that was at 1:50 a.m. Because remember, we're trying to think about the constellations and what's in the sky at the time or what's visible. So June 4th, 1993, Jim Weber, 12:04 a.m., white male. He was shot in the back.
Yep. The next one is Joseph Diacone. He was a homeless man. He was shot in the back of the neck and bled out instantly.
God.
Remember, this is a fucking homemade nail gun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then Diane Ballard, she was shot one time in the neck. She survived. Then there's the fifth victim was June 11th, 1994. But, like, he's taking credit for this victim. They go in search of this body. They cannot find it.
They can't find it.
They search exactly where he said it was. They cannot find this body, and they never do.
So the NYPD does not connect these attacks to what they're calling, like, the first round.
Yeah.
Because that was 4 years ago. And back then, the city had, like, 2,500 homicides per year back then, and even more non-fatal victims.
Yes.
So they were very, very busy.
But Joe is going through all of the evidence sent to them literally by the Zodiac.
All
and
these
saying,
notes and letters.
And he's like, this is definitely the same guy. So we are like the guy from 1990 where we started. This is the same guy that now has 9 other bodies.
Yeah, and he's starting to change things up a bit.
And like I just was saying to you before we started, like, so that means he's got something like close to 20 victims so far.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of this case.
Yeah.
And it's in my like basically hometown.
Yeah.
That's wild.
There's a lot happening in New York in the 90s.
I know. Crazy.
You know? So this guy's changing things up a bit. He's not doing the astrological signs so much anymore. Instead, he's drawing these flags.
The flags threw me off a little bit, but military people, Navy people, who recognized these flags to be maritime flags, and they were able to break the code fairly quickly. When it's decoded, it says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. I am in control. There will be more. Yours truly."
There will be more. Yours truly.
What a loser.
What a fucking loser.
Fucking loser.
But the NYPD forms a second task force.
Yeah.
And Louis, Grumpy Santa, he's the only holdover from the first round.
Yeah, because some of the cops are from the first task force are back. And so now, Louis with us too. So this guy has 2 comfort zones, we learned. The killer, the shooter, the killer. And they canvass the area.
So the comfort zones meaning like the area where he's killing most of his victims. So most of the victims are in 2 different areas in Brooklyn. The Mr. Parham one in Central Park was the outlier because he knew they were looking for him that night and that they weren't going to be looking there.
So they run every address looking for criminal histories.
So this is, I think, this is like good police work, but it's like that kind that like, because they didn't have databases, they have to do this manually. So they're like within a mile of his like first comfort zone, they get like criminal background checks for every single resident. That's like over 4,500 people.
And that's 4,500 people to fingerprint.
Yes.
So the task force wants a manual examination of those fingerprints.
Because they don't have like a computer data. And you see them holding up the partial print from the Parham letter.
So they're trying to match a partial.
Yeah.
Not even a full print.
No.
A partial out of 4,500 people at least.
And like they have to do this one at a time with like basic human eyes.
And there wasn't a single match. Poor Pork Chop is going to sleep with his beeper on his pajamas, waiting to be woken up in the middle of the night. Not a single match.
And this again is where like people they're like, okay, well, I guess we're just never going to find him. And I was like, oh my God, are we not going to know who this person is?
Because now there are no shootings anymore. There's no stabbings. There's no body. Like this is a cold case through and through.
Yes.
And everyone's really bummed. Like once again, people are moving on. They retire or they move precincts or whatever.
And Joe goes back to the 7-5 where he gets an opportunity to become a fucking hostage negotiator.
Okay, so Pork Chop. So it's June 18th, 1996.
I love how you've embraced the nickname.
And I'm saying it with love.
I know.
I love it. Pork
I
Chop.
know. It's clear to me that you love him.
It's a cute name for a dog, too.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
It's also the dog and Doug.
A hamster, maybe?
Sure. June 18th, 1996, there's a hostage situation in the 7-5.
We're not going to talk about Pork Chop, like takes a weekend class, becomes a hostage negotiator?
Well, it's Pork Chop's first hostage negotiation job.
I know.
So someone named Eddie shot their sister, and he's holding her boyfriend hostage. Now, they don't tell us if the sister is alive. I think she is.
Yeah.
So Pork Chop is trying to reason with Eddie.
I can't. Every time you call it Pork Chop, it's so funny.
Pork Chop, what's going on? So Pork Chop's trying to reason with Eddie.
And this went on for at least an hour and a half. Finally, he says, I'm ready to surrender. I was proud as a peacock because the bosses, they were patting me on the back, good job, and all that stuff. So I was very satisfied that I didn't blow it because, they don't always go good.
He was as proud as a peacock, baby.
He was proud as a peacock.
Well, it takes him 90 minutes to get the guy to surrender. Pork Chop saves the day. 90 minutes.
I know.
Sometimes these things go on for days.
When he wrote his biography, he called it Pork Chop Saves the Day.
I will read the shit out of that.
100%.
Write it tomorrow. I'll read it in a day.
Yep.
Pork Chop saves the day. Let's go. So he did a great job. Everyone's super happy. Now, Eddie is back. Eddie, the guy who was holding everyone hostage.
The actual, hostage
guy is back at the station house, and Pork Chop heads back to the scene to find out what everyone found once they were in the apartment.
God, they removed 2 pipe bombs that he had. He had pipe bombs.
Fully constructed.
Oh, my God.
And now Pork Chop is talking to the bomb squad.
Yeah.
He's like, we need to get to the bottom of this. Like, what else is there? How did he make them? Like, what are the details here?
So Eddie, the bad guy here, is down at the station. He's written a full confession. And somebody brings it to Pork Chop, hands it to Pork Chop. Within 5 seconds, Pork Chop is like, this is the Zodiac.
Because what he's saying is, yes, I shot my sister.
Yeah.
Yes, I was holding her boyfriend hostage. And Pork Chop's like, oh my God, I need to sit down.
Yeah.
He's like, I can tell by the handwriting this is him. I know exactly who this is.
That's what's so amazing. That's how invested these people were. He's like, I've been reading this guy's
years.
letters for years. And it's random. It's just random that Eddie was like, it could have been any other hostage negotiator. It could have been any other cop dealing with this who might not have been on the task force. They never would have known. He calls Grumpy Santa, Duck Dynasty guy, and he's like, get over here. I found the Zodiac.
I found him. His name is Eddie Seda. And he denies it up and down. And this, for some reason, this episode just really, we hightail it to the end here. We zip through everything.
I'm the ticker counting down. We have less than 4 minutes left of the episode.
So it's Eddie, his name is Eddie Seda. He denies it up and down. No, I'm not the New York Zodiac, until they show him the photos of Patricia Fonte.
So remember, she was the one that was so brutally murdered. She was stabbed so many times that they missed the bullet. The cops didn't even see that she had been shot.
That was the gruesomest scene we had, Fonte's. And we put him on the wall. Now he's looking, it's right in front of him, and his eyes going back and forth. And we're talking to him, look what you did. Then I see the vein in his neck, and boom, pounding.
And that's when this guy cracks. And he confesses to them all in order.
In order.
And then I'm like, and that's kind of it. Like, we got the guy, which is a little, there was something about it that was like, but did we? Like,
I know.
Are we sure it's him? Because we don't have a lot of details about this.
But I mean, like, if he did the victims in order, like, yes, it's definitely him.
Right, because who's home, like, memorizing all of that in case you get caught? To then take credit for these things you didn't do? Like, that's a lot of information.
No, and like, the fact that he shot his sister, but she lived.
And he didn't know that pork chop is connected to the New York Zodiac case. Like, how would he be able to plan that?
And he's like a young guy. They don't give us his age, but you look at him, like, they were saying, like, you imagine him to be like a monster.
Yeah.
Like and he wasn't. He looked like a young guy. And this is where they tell us they never found out how he got the Zodiac signs of his victims.
Right.
I'm dying to know.
I know. And so Duck Dynasty Louie, Grumpy Santa, gets the original Zodiac symbol tattooed on his wrist. And he's like, I know this guy was a copycat with totally different motives.
Yeah.
But I need the Zodiac Killer symbol on my body or I am going to snap.
Get it on me now.
Now.
Get it on me.
Now.
Yesterday.
And he's like, because it's part of my life. And it's like, this is my cross, my burden to bear.
Oh, my God.
Like, to quote Mad Men, stop being such a martyr. You're having the time of your life. You're loving every second of this. Who's like, I need the original Zodiac symbol on me now. Who's tattooing that shit?
But just
There's no space next to Charles Manson's face on my back.
Or like the clown, like John Wayne Gacy. Oh my God.
Man?
But we learn on June 24th, 1998, the killer is convicted of 3 counts of murder and 6 attempted murders, sentenced to 232 years in prison.
Yeah.
And he's still alive. Never heard of this case. Wild.
90s was a crazy time in New York, baby.
Oh God, I bet. Girl, we did it. We did the New York Zodiac Killer from
Catching Killers.
This is one of those series that I've always like meant to watch but never did.
We're going to be picking and choosing. We're going to be doing more of these for sure.
Yeah. Fam, before I forget, I'm hitting the road again with my traveling book party in March, and here's where I'm coming, just as a quick reminder. I'll be in Red Bank, New Jersey on Friday, March 8th, Louisville, Kentucky on Sunday, March 10th, Cincinnati, Ohio on Tuesday, March 12th, Columbus, Ohio on Wednesday, March 13th, and Buffalo, New York on Thursday, March 14th. You can get all the information and tickets at my website, patrickfails.com. Fam, get in the Facebook group. If you're new to TCO, welcome. I promise you, as soon as this comes out, I'm going to put up all the Norbert Leo Butts and Sheridan
I was going to say.
Scott clips in the group.
Aida, YouTube, and Heather Heedy. Like, come on.
I know. And Joanna Gleason fans. We'll get some Joanna Gleason in there as well. I went to college with her son. I got to know him pretty well, actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Also, join us on the Patreon. Over 350 full ad-free bonus episodes to download and binge right this second. We've probably already announced the dates for Drag Bingo and for the mixology class. We're filming the mixology class in my kitchen.
Oh my God.
Natalie and I are like spending time figuring out how to film it. We're doing it live on Patreon. So anybody on Patreon can watch. We're going to save it, of course, so you can watch it later.
If you miss it, if you don't watch it live, you'll be able to catch it later.
Drag Bingo is going to be a thing we're going to do every month, maybe more than once a month.
Okay.
Schwa is amazing. We had our meeting with them last week. Just absolutely amazing.
I love bingo.
Patreon.com/truecrimeobsessed.
That's right.
What are we doing next?
So this is a very, very highly requested series.
Ooh.
It's called The Florida Man Murders.
Oh.
We're doing episode 1. There are only a handful of episodes. So the first one is called The Musclehead Murders, which is really the murders of Frank Griga and Christina Furton.
Okay.
But it all takes place in Florida, and it is wild.
Oh, fam, stay tuned for the trailer for that and our funny and hilarious outtakes, which I'm assuming is going to include a lot of our personal stories about Norbert Leo Butts.
Yes. And pork chop.
And pork chop. And we love you.
We love you.
All right, bye.
We'll see you later. Bye.
Florida in general is kind of unique. We get the weirdest of the weird.
This case, it had it all.
It was a notorious crime spree fueled by sex, drugs, and Miami's fast lane.
It was a wild, wild tale that had a cast of real shady characters. and the glitz and glamour of Miami.
A Lamborghini is mysteriously abandoned in the Everglades.
We knew something terrible had happened to Frank and Christina. This was one of the biggest cases. The FBI, the U.S. Marshals.
These meatheads, dressed as ninjas.
They called themselves Batman and Robin.
They proceeded to torture him.
He was treated worse than any prisoner of war.
They used a butane lighter to burn his body.
They returned the chainsaw that they just used. It was almost comical.
It was one stupid attempt after another.
They were a dumb group of criminals who almost got away with one of the most vicious, disturbing crimes that I have ever seen.
It was evil.
Yeah, he, like, on one arm, he's got all of the names of his dead friends tattooed.
Buckets, he's dead. He's dead. I'm not making fun of Buckets.
No.
But this is literally what he says.
Do you know how many people on the road I have to break it to that Daisy Speedy Hamster is no longer with us?
Oh, no.
People are like, how's Daisy Speedy? I'm like, oh, you must be a new listener.
Rest. Poor little thing.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
She's dead.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
And
he calls it a job. I'm like, oh my God, this isn't like, you're not working, you're not a dumb podcaster. Like, this is a thing that actually matters.
Right, but it's still a job.
I know.
He's still going to work.
He's like a freelance hostage negotiator. YouTube him right now. YouTube his song from Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
Because there's a rehearsal footage of it, and it's like him tap dancing for his life.
So
it
good.
is so good.
He's also really good screaming at Megan Hilty when she's drunk
Yes,
and smashed.
yes,
Because
yes,
she's
yes.
like,
Get out of here.
He's like the star of
Yep.
the show that she was in
Oh
the
my
show
God.
while she's like fighting
Yes.
to be in Bombshell.
Yes.
And she is like taking a bunch of pills. It's a whole thing.
I know.
But he gets really mad at her and yells at her on stage in song. It's
Oh
great.
my God. This is our gayest episode yet.
Okay, well, we say that a lot.
I know.